All right, Ryan, we got to get ready. We're going to review the Deadpool movies in a minute, and you smell like somebody microwaved a used diaper. You smell like Donald Trump's bloody ear bandage after it was left out in the sun for a week. You smell like a wet basset hound that has to be put down for gingivitis. You smell like the ball sweat from Hugh Jackman's jockstrap after he gave a live performance of The Greatest Showman. That's 4. Is that enough for the extended cut?
I liked her. I really liked her, you know?
Are you upset because you didn't get Taylor Swift to cameo in your movie? Look, Fox or Marvel, Swifties or not, people love this character, and they're going to come out to see... Are you pissing right now? Are you urinating while I'm talking to you? Because you're making that face you make when you pee. Is he peeing on the floor right now?
I'm on it.
There you go, Dopender. If you want to be a film critic, you have to handle a mop as well as a movie review.
Although I don't quite understand how they are at all similar.
Because I can use both to wipe the floor with your horrid performance. Now get back to work.
I get it.
It's time to start the show. Why don't you go home and get ready?
I don't have a home, you know? Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine.
All right, we're done here. Get him out. Plus, I've already used up all the available footage from this scene, so this is movie night. Hey, look at this. 2 episodes in 2 weeks, and both for brand new releases. Hello and welcome to Movie Night. I'm Jonathan Paula. Tonight we're taking a long, hard, deep dive into the Merc with the Mouth. That came out wrong. We are going to be reviewing the entire Deadpool trilogy, though. And by we, I mean me, because, well, you can't. I reviewed the original film when it came out on opening weekend, but in the spirit of maximum effort, I wanted to update my script on how the film has held up in the 8 years since. So here again, to start us off, my thoughts on Deadpool. Sarcastic and ambitious. This ain't your parents' superhero movie. An impressive debut for the film's director Tim Miller, this is a truly fresh take on that tired and oversaturated genre. Released nationwide on February 12, 2016, the $58 million action comedy film was a smash hit, grossing nearly $800 million worldwide, which temporarily made it the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time. And boy does it earn that restricted rating. Blood, gore, nudity, language, and at least a dozen masturbation jokes ensure this one requires an accompanying parent or adult guardian for all viewers under 17. The plot follows Ryan Reynolds as the title character, a special forces op-turned-mercenary who undergoes a dangerous mutant-creating procedure to treat his terminal cancer. As a side effect, he finds himself not only horribly disfigured, but imbued with accelerated healing powers and de facto immortality.
Wait! You may be wondering why the red suit. Well, that's so bad guys can't see me bleed. This guy's got the right idea. He wore the brown pants.
In his 5th comic book adaptation, and second as this particular character, Ryan is outstanding as the crude, annoying, sex-obsessed martial artist who doesn't hesitate to decapitate his enemies and use their severed heads as projectiles. You could tell Reynolds has reverence for this project, as his treatment of the iconic character is faithful and authentic. From his chiseled physique to his wisecracking sarcasm, he's a perfect fit for the role. Morena Baccarin, Skrein, and TJ Miller portray the love interest, villain, and ally, respectively. They're able to bring dramatic sincerity to the somewhat outlandish script, and the emotional stakes of the picture actually resonate as a result. TJ is especially great as the plucky comic relief, a role the film directly pokes fun at, while the inclusion of Gina Carano, Brianna Hildebrand, and Stefan Kapicic as various mutants aren't given much to say or do, except fill out whatever Fox-mandated X-Men quota they were trying to hit. They're more fan service than necessity, but I still had a fun time with them. Speaking of which, the 108-minute story features a number of references to that franchise, including a great gag where Reynolds asks if it's McAvoy or Stewart currently in charge. Deadpool opens with a stupendous freeze frame during the middle of an explosive action sequence, with the camera floating through the suspended scene as mock credits flash on screen. A bit later, we're witness to this insane stunt at full speed, and it's even more glorious. The choreographed violence and death is so detailed it gives the Final Destination movies a run for their money. Intercut with lengthy flashbacks providing Deadpool's origin story, this centerpiece action sequence is humorously summarized by Reynolds when he later remarks, "Today was about as much fun as a sandpaper dildo." I will say that not much is really gained by the non-linear approach to the story, and a chronological edit probably would have worked just as well. Indeed, because so much of the first half of the narrative slaloms in and out of this highway set piece, you might not notice that Deadpool is surprisingly small in scale. There's really only 2 significant action sequences in the entire movie. Granted, they're both expertly blocked and executed, but I certainly left wanting a bit more. Brisk pacing and comfortable wide framing lets this chaotic and frenzied picture really breathe and stay coherent. The visual effects are integrated seamlessly with practical stunts and takedowns. Meanwhile, Junkie XL provides a gritty and urban score that blends well with plenty of appropriate but sometimes ironic pop music needle drops. DMX and Wham are obvious highlights. With lots of breaking of the fourth wall that makes sure the audience is in on the joke, this movie's flaws are quickly lampshaded for laughs, much to the film's benefit. Although it's definitely not for younger audiences, all older Marvel fans should adore the memorable lead, graphic violence, and mature humor. Deadpool is an ambitious and sarcastic adventure that earns its position among the best in the X-Men film catalog. However, 8 years later, I'm sad to report that this film doesn't feel as revelatory or hilarious as I remember. But in the sake of fairness, I will uphold my original score and rate this an awesome. Before we continue, let's resurrect an old feature here on Movie Night and ask a poll question. What is your favorite single joke in the Deadpool trilogy? Leave your answer as a comment below. Next up, let's discuss Deadpool 2. An adventurous follow-up. Utilizing a $110 million budget, nearly double its predecessor, this sequel from stuntman turned director David Leitch was a similarly massive success following its May 2018 release. In fact, Deadpool 2 earned a nearly identical $785 million worldwide cume, momentarily making it the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time, just like the first film. The 2-hour story follows our favorite foul-mouthed mutant mercenary as he assembles a team of fellow rogues to protect a young boy with fire-throwing abilities from the brutal time-traveling cyborg Cable. Try saying that sentence 5 times fast. Back behind the mask, Ryan Reynolds hasn't missed a step, firing off lewd one-liners and popping baddies like they're candy. The script, penned by returning writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, with help from Ryan of course, gives Deadpool agency and a real character arc, even if the story itself isn't particularly deep or nuanced. It is, however, thankfully more involved than the original. The Merc is forced to learn how to care for others and not always put himself first, which besides the emotional payoffs result in some excellent self-deprecating jokes as well. He's rude and crude, but you can tell he has an auto-healing heart of gold, and I think that's what makes this such an endearing character audiences love to root for. Elsewhere in this superhero flick is Josh Brolin as the futuristic soldier Cable, whose true motives make him a compelling and sympathetic character. Josh mostly just grunts and remains stone-faced at Ryan's many dumb quips, so while I can't say it's a great performance, I can say he plays a great straight man. Morena Baccarin returns in a brief but integral role, providing plenty of sex appeal and narrative incitement, and fresh off the success of the brilliant Hunt for the Wilder People, 15-year-old Julian Dennison is electric as a wayward mutant teen who seeks violent revenge on an abusive headmaster. His mentee-mentor relationship with Reynolds is a real linchpin of the film's emotional core. They bond during a brief prison stint that sees them fitted with power-suppressing devices around their necks, to which Ryan hilariously remarks,
With this collar on, my superpower is just unbridled cancer. Give me a bow and arrow, I'm basically Hawkeye.
a recurring gag where everyone is constantly reminding Deadpool that he's only a trainee and not a proper member of the X-Men is also pretty great. It does feel like the humor here is a bit smarter, or at least more reliant on pop culture references, instead of juvenile potty humor. An extended bit involving naked baby legs and genitalia notwithstanding. Zazie Beetz, TJ Miller, Brianna Hildebrand, and a host of smaller roles and cameos flesh out the supporting cast with excellent, if somewhat cartoonish, characters. Keep an eye out for an uncredited Matt Damon in the film's extended cut, and of course Brad Pitt, who appears for all of 20 frames as Vanisher. Beetz in particular is an awesome addition as Domino, a member of Deadpool's newly formed X-Force, whose superpower is literally being lucky. Although Deadpool explicitly chastises this ability as not very cinematic, her ability to win any fight through sheer happenstance and coincidence was probably my favorite part of the movie. Just delightfully silly and badass all at the same time. Like a moment where she flies hundreds of feet out of a crashing caravan only to land effortlessly on a conveniently placed giant blow-up panda bear. Another standout scene has to be the X-Force's inaugural mission, a sequence so rife with gore, humor, and subverted expectations, it has to be seen to be appreciated. Much like the first film, all the action here is carefully photographed for maximum comprehension and visual payoffs. Full movements are allowed to finish within a single cut, while slow motion, extreme close-ups, and quick insert shots provide necessary geographic context and story cues. Despite all of the chaos, jokes, bullets, and blood, you never feel lost following along. Credit to Leitch here. Coming off the success of the John Wick and Atomic Blonde films, the dude knows how to film a fight. Unfortunately, this did come at a cost, as the long and stressful shooting days claimed the life of stuntwoman Joy Harris, who died in a motorcycle accident while doubling for Beetz. The film is dedicated to her memory. Now, I don't have anything particularly good or bad to say about the film's music. Tyler Bates' score is there, and it's fine. But some well-placed pop songs from Dolly Parton, Cher, Peter Gabriel, Steve Miller, Air Supply, and Celine Dion are what really drive the mood. I had a big smile throughout. Whether you watch the theatrical version, the PG-13 rated Once Upon a Deadpool, or the additional 15 minutes in the super duper cut, this film really is more of the same from part 1. If you enjoyed Reynolds as Deadpool before, you'll enjoy him again here. But like most sequels that seemingly improve on their predecessors, I have trouble actually grading this installment higher, as so much of what works was already pioneered before. So even though the execution is stronger, it gets no points for originality.
Doing the right thing is messy. But if you want to fight for what's right, sometimes you have to fight dirty.
Fast, fun, and not particularly complicated, Deadpool 2 is the ideal superhero sequel, delivering more jokes and better action. I think it's a great film, and for what it's worth, this one seemed to hold up better on a rewatch. Lastly tonight, my review of Deadpool and Wolverine. A fan-pleasing adventure. With much fanfare and anticipation, the third entry in the Deadpool series was released nationwide on July 26, 2024. And even though it cost $200 million to produce, nearly 4 times the cost of the original, it's also the only Marvel Cinematic Universe film of the year, so it's expected to score huge at the box office. $1 billion could be in play. This also marks the first integration of 20th Century Fox's X-Men film franchise into the larger MCU, after Disney acquired that studio in 2019 for $71 billion. And with that acquisition came Deadpool and his infamous R rating. How would the House with the Mouse handle this adult material? Well, Marvel head Kevin Feige opted to let boys be boys, so the character's trademark violence and lewd language is on full, glorious display. It remains to be seen how this will integrate into future team-up movies, but for now, this is Disney's first R-rated Marvel movie, and it works. After some multi-dimensional shenanigans bring them together, the 128-minute story sees Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool joining forces with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine to defeat a common enemy and save a universe. The film's timeline-hopping plot is, at its core, a convoluted means to an end. It exists only to allow the filmmakers creative carte blanche to stuff in whatever character or reference they'd like and have it work. Thankfully, Deadpool's fourth-wall-breaking superpower allows him to guide the audience through this mess by explicitly acknowledging the machinations behind the Disney-Fox merger and its implications on the story. Trying to explain this within the narrative would have been cumbersome, so while it feels like a total cheat, I appreciated the straightforward approach.
I smell what you're stepping in, Sensei. Your little cinematic universe is about to change forever.
Once that foundational exposition is out of the way, things get off to a roaring start with a corpse-desecrating fight montage set to the ironically upbeat sounds of NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye. From there, the story pivots to a proper buddy film with Reynolds and Jackman. Having previously appeared together only briefly in the disappointing X-Men Origins Wolverine, the gentlemen are finally afforded the opportunity to star in a proper two-hander. And it's a delight to see these real-life friends bring their famous chemistry to the big screen. That familiarity is something they also share with the film's director, Sean Levy. Reynolds worked with him on Free Guy and The Atom Project, and Jackman starred in Real Steel, all 3 of which I've already reviewed, which you can read or watch by clicking here. Reynolds is predictably excellent, as always, maintaining his snark without becoming irritating. His character, however, is in a state of arrested development, as he doesn't learn or do anything new. If there's a Deadpool 4, I'd like to see Marvel do something genuinely disruptive or different with him. One-liners and self-deprecating monologues about sacrifice can only sustain this franchise for so long. Then there's Jackman as the Wolverine. Including cameos, this is his 10th time portraying that character, and while Logan remains his strongest performance, he taps into some genuine emotional pathos here. Even in his 50s, this Australian still has the sauce. He's also a perfect comedic foil for Ryan's constant quips, much of which come at the Greatest Showman's expense. And while I'm certainly not a comic purist, it was delightful to see Hugh finally don that iconic yellow and blue cowl. Meanwhile, Emma Corrin is featured as the bald and menacing villain that rules over the Void. She's serviceable in the role, but her motivation is just lazy writing. Narratively, little here is compelling or organic. It exists only to smash together intellectual property for laughs. I was also disappointed that nearly all supporting characters from previous Deadpool films are sidelined, and only glimpsed in the bookends. I wasn't expecting much continuation there, but it would have been nice to catch up with Dopinder or Domino again. The first Deadpool relied on potty humor, the sequel on pop culture, and this threequel leans heavily into self-referential comic book lore. This constant barrage of callbacks and references is like drinking from a garden hose, with an array of material only the terminally online can fully appreciate. Indeed, one character's entire dialogue string relies on the audience knowing about a shelved Fox project from 10 years ago. If you've been watching Marvel films since the 90s, you're in for a treat, but I fear many will be left scratching their heads at some of the more obscure references. None of the surprise cameos are particularly significant to the plot, so I guess you'd be okay without knowing who they are. Still, it was fun to see these characters again, and the actors themselves are provided a nice, if brief, opportunity to tie a bow on their respective legacies. And then during the end credits, a clip show montage of Fox's X-Men franchise is a fun send-off to characters and actors of yesteryear. Beyond these deep-cut cameos and fan-pleasing references, it's the multiversal variants of Deadpool and Wolverine that provide some of the best laughs, as we glimpse angrier, shorter, and nicer versions of the title characters. While the visuals here aren't noteworthy, I'm happy to report that everything is cleanly photographed against simple and uncluttered sets. An early sequence amidst massive ruined artifacts in a temporal purgatory is particularly inspired. The giant hollowed-out corpse of Ant-Man is undoubtedly one of the more creative decisions. All the while, the fight choreography allows for ample blood and gore.
Let's fucking go!
Let's fucking go.
Although it's a clumsy introduction of the X-Men into the MCU, this is a hugely amusing experience for die-hard fans. But God help you if you go into this picture without having seen at least 24 other films first. I can't in good conscience even recommend it to casual viewers for that reason. But if you are determined, I'd suggest watching, at a minimum, Deadpool 1 and 2, obviously, and then Logan and Season 1 of Loki. And for those who have already invested half their lives watching these stories and following these characters, Deadpool and Wolverine is tailor-made for you, a raucously fun time that satisfyingly unites two of Marvel's best characters. I thought this film was great, and I'm excited to watch it again soon. That does it for this episode of Movie Night, but if you'd like to watch more of my content, click or tap the thumbnails on the left. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss my next upload. My name is Jonathan Paula, thank you for watching, and have a good movie night.